Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen, ma'am.
This side. Okay, so like I said earlier, we are just going to be assessing like four critical areas. This area, they're going to determine whether the Nigerian fintech um, is whether the Nigerian fintech revolutions thrive on a foundation of trust, whether they are assessing the risk or not. Here is our roadmap for today. So one thing that we're going to do is to ensure that this presentation is structured in a way that is going to like take us through like a logical journey on data protection compliance. We are going to begin with practical measures that we must implement. That is our compliance toolkit. This is the actual how of compliance. Next, we are now going to confront what happens when things go wrong. What are we supposed to do when things go wrong? This is going to include breach notification timelines and penalties. We then assess the external challenges because it's not just about what we are doing internally alone. It's also about what is going on externally that we are facing as a country in Nigeria. Things that they are out of our direction control, but they're actually still critical for us to understand. Then we'll now look at the lessons from like EU GDPR and then others, and then we'll try to provide a concrete recommendation as key takeaways. So what we are trying to ensure is that by the end of this, we want to have like a clear understanding of both our obligations internally and also the broader context in which we operate in. So I'm going to start with the compliance toolkit. We know that the Nigerian Data Protection Act 2023 and its implementing directive, that's General Application and Implementing Directive that 2025, has given us like a clear roadmap for compliance. How do we go about this? How do we do this? How do we become compliant? But the thing is, however, it is important for us to still understand that compliance is not just about having a policy document tucked away somewhere in your folder somewhere. It's only when you now want to audit looking for it as gathered dust. It's not just about that. Because there are so many organizations that it's only when they want to audit that's when they start checking boxes. They don't have it. It's not in their DNA. It's not embedded in their. It's not a culture to them. So we need to start looking at compliance. We need to start looking at compliance about us building a data protection compliance culture. It has to embed. We have to embed privacy in the DNA of our organization. Every decision that we are making, every product that we are building, every line of code, every employee, we have to embed privacy into the DNA of everything that we are doing in our organization. And now we're going to be looking at compliance in two elements that they both work together. We have the organizational measures. This is our foundational governance structure. This is where we are talking about who is responsible for what processes exist, and how do we document things. And then these measures that we are looking at in the organizational measures, they are just for like accountability and oversight. Then we now proceed to the technical measures. This is where we are now actually like implementing what is documented in the organizational measures. These are like the security controls. We are talking about the encryption, the access control, the monitoring system that we're trying to protect our data in real time. And the thing is that you can't do one without the other. You need both because a strong governance without technical control is just a paperwork. And strong technical controls without governance is chaos. You can't implement security measures without oversight, without strategy. But together, they just create like a protective data protection for you. And the thing is that the guide has given us like a well-detailed checklist for everything that's required. And when it comes to like fintech that they're operating in like a fast-moving, high-risk environment, they need to focus on like this checklist, especially like we're talking about like, conducting DPIs and also like implementing like a robust vendor management for their cloud infrastructure. Once we're able to in fintech world, once we're able to get this thing, we once we're able to get these things right, so we are halfway there. So the next we are going to be talking about is the organizational measure. This is the foundation. And we are going to be working. I'm going to walk us through like each of these organizational measures in detail, so that we know that when we are doing this blog, they are as effective as they should be. The first is like the DPCO appointment. DPCO is Data Protection Compliance Organization. It's required by law that you have to appoint a licensed data protection compliance organization. Think of them as like your external licensed auditor and consultant. If anything is going on, they're like your first line of defense. You are reaching out to them for help, you are reaching out to them for guidance. And they're also helping you to implement like your compliance framework from the get-go. And they also help you to conduct like your annual audits that the NDPC requires. They put you through what you have to do, what you do not have to do. How do you write your reports? And so don't see them as okay, you just want to minimize costs. Why am I spending money on this? See them as an investment in your organizational survival more than the amount that you're investing. The second is the appointment of a DPO. Well, the NDPC has given us ways, depending on the volume and sensitivity of the data processing. But I'm going to recommend that every organization should have DPO in their they should have DPO. You need to appoint a data protection officer. It's not just about oh, this is like a title on your business card. This is the person that is like the champion within your organization. This person wakes up every day thinking about data protection. And this person have like authority to speak truth to power. They oversee your entire data protection strategy. And in every organization, appointing a data protection officer, and then the CEO is giving order on how to go about this. No, they must have independence. You must give them resources. And then they need to have like direct access to like senior management. One thing I always advocate for is management buying. If there is management buying in every organization, I mean that organization is willing to thrive on data protection and security compliance. And then next we move to like our data privacy impact assessment. I'm pro data privacy impact assessment for every process you want to do in the organization. It's not just when well, it's make there are specific area that the NDPA has required that you have to conduct DPI. But I always say that in every process that you are doing in your organization, conduct a DPI because every DPI that you conduct it shows you new risk. And when you see this new risk, you are able to implement the controls to mitigate this risk. And by the time you're advancing your products, you're advancing your process, you already have like mitigations controls in place. So that it's not like now, like it's now out of controls and all of that. And the thing is that the guide is very crystal clear on this. DPIs are non-negotiable when it comes to high risk processing. So it's just like doing like this assessment process. This is designed to identify and minimize data protection risks before they materialize. You are not, it's not, it's a proactive measure, it's not a reactive measure. You're not waiting for something to happen. You're taking charge, you are doing what you have to do. Then we have like privacy by design and by default. You are integrating data protection in your processing activities from the beginning of designing a new product or service. It's not an not something that oh we've deployed, we've launched this product. You're not thinking of oh we should have put this security setting, we should have done this. No, you implement it from the get-go, from the beginning, and show out the life cycle of that particular data processing, the product or the service. And the thing is that by default, you should only process the data that is strictly necessary for that specific purpose. You need to constantly ask yourself, do I really need to collect it? Do I really need to store this thing for 5 years? Don't store data just in case of you need it in future. Do you need this right now? And the problem is when you store data, a data that you don't have, you cannot breach it. By the time you are storing data, it's giving you are more like you are liable to that data. So ensure that you're only collecting what you need and you're only storing what you need. And then when recording of processing activities, please we need to maintain a detailed and up-to-date record of all of our data processing activities. It actually makes it easier for us. This is where we are knowing what we are collecting. Why are we collecting it? Who are we sharing it with? Where is it stored? How long do we keep it for? Let us see it as our data map. I will always advocate for data flow map because if you are just writing it down in your policy, you might not really understand how to go about it. But the moment you start like moving from this direction to the other, mapping this data to this one, you'll be able to understand if you really need it. Why are you collecting it? You'll be able to answer questions and make decisions. And thing is that one thing that is certain is that the NDPs, when it comes to audit, they expect to see all of these things. When they come investigating or audit, they expect to see all of these things. Now, when it comes to our staff training now, one thing is that see your compliance is only as strong as your weakest link. You can have like the best policy in the whole world. You can have like the best strategy, the best oversight and all. But if a junior staff member, they should go and click on a phishing email, or they should share your customer data on unsecured WhatsApp group, it all falls apart. So you have to regularly train all your staff. And from the top to the bottom, from the CEO to the new intern. This is not a suggestion. This is not just something that, oh, let's do it, let's not do it. We really need to. It's a core requirement of the law. Then we have like vendor management. It's not just about you anymore. You have vendors. You have people that you are assigning. You are assigning your. They have access to your customer data because of the role that they play in your organization. They play for your organization. They are like a data processor or something. And you must have like a DPA agreement with all these third parties that you share data with. You get they can be your cloud service provider, they can be like your marketing agency, they can be like anything that they shall have access to data. You need to share a DPA with them. And the thing is, you are legally responsible for your compliance, for their compliance, for your vendors compliance, sub processor compliance. You are legally sorry, for your vendor, sub processor, sorry, for your vendor compliance, you are legally responsible for their compliance. It's not about, oh, I know this company, they should have these technical measures in place, they should have all of this in place. I trust them. No, don't trust them by mouth. Have it in agreement. Conduct your risk assessment on them. Do your third party due diligence on them, and draft a DPA so that if anything happens, you are holding them responsible. Because if anything should happen, your customers are not going to be holding the vendors responsible. They're going to be holding you responsible. So you have to ensure that whatever vendor that you are bringing in, they have the right technical and organizational measure that you yourself you are putting in place. So we'll proceed to the technical measures. Now, sorry, I've skipped. Okay. Now, let's look at the technical side of compliance. I mean, this is like where the rubber meets the road in the fintech context here. So we have like the encryption and pseudonymization. Encryption is very, very mandatory for personal data, especially like for financial data. Your military grade level encryption. That's what you have to have. Your AES 256, CLS 1.3. There should be no exception. There should be no excuse. You should have like a top-notch encryption for your data storage and data transmission. And then when it comes to pseudonymization, this is where you are replacing identifying field with artificial intelligence. Because you don't, nobody can see the data. There should be like an identifier that is showing that, but you now use this identifier to go and get the data. But when somebody is seeing it, they are not seeing the data, they are seeing just the artificial identifier. And this is like a very strong technical safeguard that it can actually like reduce like our compliance body. Then we have access to management. It's not everybody that needs access to everything. Just because I'm a data protection officer, I don't need access to the database. What do I need it for? I always go by this rule. If in a month you are not doing that particular task, you don't need that data to do your particular task, you don't need access to it. It's only when maybe later on you now need it, they should not give you access. And immediately after doing it, you should the access. You understand? Not everyone in the organization needs access to like raw customer transaction data. In fact, most people do not. So the principle is very simple. You only give people minimum access they need to do their job and nothing more. You understand? And then when it comes to secure cloud architecture, this is this is like this is very critical for like modern fintech because most fintechs now they are putting all their data on cloud and all. So we have to make sure that our cloud environment are configured securely. We are using like a strong firewall, your IDS, that's like intrusion detection system, your IPS, your intrusion prevention system, and you're also vetting your cloud service provider and ensuring that their security posture are very application. You cannot just assume that, oh, it's AWS, it's cloud, Google Cloud, they have it covered. You have to verify, you have to audit, you have to continuously monitor their compliance within your requirements. You understand? Then we have like data minimization. You should only build your system to only collect what you actually need. Don't just store data just in case it might be useful. And then there's this way that you can automate processes that will just delete and anonymize data that the process, the purpose has been fulfilled. So if there's a system that will show when you don't really like interact with that data, it will pop up that do you still need this data or can we delete or anonymize this data? And when you review, it's kind of like, okay, proceed, delete or anonymize this data. Because see, data hoarding is just like is a bad practice. And because majorly it's majorly manual review, so a lot of people tend to hoard data. And if they don't even have like this recording or processing activity, they don't even know the data that they have, why they need the data, and they start hoarding the data. And the thing is that it becomes like a liability that is waiting to happen. So, like I said earlier, data that you do not have cannot be breached. Don't collect data that you don't need. Don't store data that you don't need. Then there is logging and monitoring. Please implement a robust system that will log all the personal data and continuously monitor for suspicious activities. If you cannot see what is happening to your data, you cannot protect it. So, like a good logging enables like early detection of it provides like forensic evidence for investigation. And it's also like demonstrating to regulators that oh, you're taking your security serious, that you're good with security, your security posture is very good. And then your incident response plan is mechanism. Yeah, let's say mechanism, not just plan. So you have your incident response plan in place. Are you testing? Are you drilling it? Because it's not a question of if a breach should happen. It's a question of when. So you don't just have incident response plan thinking that a breach will not happen. It's a matter of when. So you need to be sure that there is a system in place that will detect, contain, and respond effectively when a breach. This is by testing it. So you cannot just have a plan on paper. It's not enough. You need to test it. You need to update it regularly, and you need to ensure that every employee they know their role in that regard. So we have like the mandatory versus recommended. So the guide has drawn like a clear line between what you absolutely need to do to be legally compliant and what you can actually consider as best practice for genuine protection. I mean, all these mandatory ones, they are non-negotiable. If you are processing personal data, you must encrypt it. You must have access control. You must have basic logging. You must have, you must test your incident response plan. You must configure your cloud securely. They're just like bare minimum requirements for you to be compliant with Nigerian law. And failing to implement any of this is a violation and it can result in enforcement action and fine. We're still going to talk about that later. Then, when it comes to recommended measures, they go beyond like your legal requirement. They represent industry best practice. We are talking about like advanced organization. We spoke about this already. This is just actually going to add that to be identified if a data is good. And then we have like biometric authentication, AI powered threat detection, and many more. And
Excuse me.
then, well,
So just a quick question, ma. Can you hear me,
yeah,
ma? So I wanted to
yes, yes,
we spoke about access controls. So I wanted to confirm
yeah,
how regular, how often, and how necessary should and when are the times organizations should have to regulate those that have access to customers' financial data, and how important it is as it concerns the data protection. You spoke
okay,
about
thank you
access
very
control, the technical part of data protection.
yes,
So I want to know why
yeah,
it is important that they should regulate how the access to customer financial data.
okay.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
when it comes to yeah, so thank you for that question. When it comes to access control, if every person has access to the financial data, it will definitely lead to unauthorized access. Because if a new intent that is coming into the organization, they can see your customer raw financial data and they don't even know how to protect it yet. It does not, they don't even need it to require for it. Do you think they will know how to protect it? protect it well. And if they don't know how to protect it, it will now lead to unauthorized access, which should lead to like data breach. And at the end of it, this is like a violation that will now lead to enforcement of fines. So the ways that you can protect that is by implementing role-based access control on a need-to-know basis. You're asking yourself questions that people, this particular data, does this person need this to do their job? If they don't need it, don't give them access. And you have to regularly review your access control. Me, I'm going to advise quarterly. Review your access control quarterly. Look at your if it's applications that you're looking at, is there documents, even down to like just documents. Label your documents, label is confidential, internal use only, and all of that. Label it. And once you label it and you know people that they actually need this access to this particular data, you go to where you can see people that they share it. Does this person need this particular access to this particular document? If they don't need it, remove them. You review it regularly. Some people, imagine like a disgruntled ex-employee now that has left your company and they still have access to company data. What do you do with it? Is that they are selling it to your, what they call it, that they are selling it to your competitor, or they will do it, they will not even like secure it well, and then it will not become like one of the, it will become unauthorized access by, sorry, it will become accessed by an unauthorized person, and it will not lead to data breach. So these are the ways that you are protecting your data, your customers' data. Because at the end of the day, if there is an unauthorized access, if there is a data breach, it's not just on you alone, it's also on your customers as well, because it can lead to like severe harm. Imagine someone that they've exposed their financial data or maybe their health data. It can lead to financial loss, it can lead to discrimination, and they're going to sue you. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you, man. You've answered my question.
Okay. Okay. So for fintechs that they are actually handling like sensitive financial data or operating in high risk environments, I will strongly recommend that we move forward to like the, it's not just we're not just sticking to the minimum, but we're also working towards like the recommended best practice. It's not just about checking regulatory boxes. We're actually like protecting our customers and our business. So this means like whatever that we are investing like right now is actually we are investing like in stronger security, and it's cost less than the cost of a major breach. Like somebody asked a question now, if whatever you're only doing is looking at the access control, that's like a proactive measure. You're not waiting for something to happen and then it will not cause a major breach, and then you have to pay regulatory fine. You have to, the customers might sue you, and then your reputational damage as well. So all of these things, they are the cost of a major breach that you try to not even get to by investing in a stronger security. So we are looking at DPI now. So why do we need to conduct a DPI? The law requires that anytime that we are doing something that could pose a significant risk for individuals, we need to conduct DPI. An example is like when we are doing like a AI-driven credit scoring model. Yes, we need to conduct a DPI because algorithm it can contain hidden biases that will not discriminate against certain groups, or they can make enormous decisions that will affect the financial lives of some people. We are telling you are like you are using an automated decision to give people credit score. In this way, like this, you are already like making life decision for some people because you're using AI. So you need to conduct PIA to know that to know the risk that they attach to that particular process that you did that particular process. What do you currently have? What are the controls that you currently have in your organization? And what are the controls that you further controls that you need to implement so that these risks they're not going to materialize. Then if you are doing like large scale processing and all of that and all, then providing the vulnerability individual, what are the things that your DPIA must show? There are many things that you must show, but these are like the four critical things. There should be like a clear description of what you are doing with your data, with the data. The scope of processing, the nature of processing, it has to show. The third party that you are that they have access to the data, it has to show it. And then you also have like an assessment on whether you really need to do it and what is the necessity and proportionality. Do you really need this data? Can you do it otherwise? And then you also need to like identify the risk to people. It's not just to your company, but to their rights as well and their freedom. In this part, like somebody that you're using AI to do automation decision on their credit score, you've already made decision for that person. You're giving them like a low credit score. That is risk to them because that's now like to their own rights and freedom. Then you will now like look for a concrete plan on how you will address those risks now. So let's say now that for this automated decision making now part of your control is implementing human review, human in loop review. You are implementing that so that you are looking into like safeguards, security measures, and alternative approach to ensure that these risks they don't materialize. See, the thing is that the guide is very, very crystal clear on this. You need to treat DPI as a valuable for building better. I will always say this: don't just do because you are doing eye sensitive or anything. Do it as every process that you are doing, do DPI, conduct a DPI for every process that you are doing in your organization so that you'll be able to know the risks that they associate with that particular process and then you can mitigate it. So what are the core compliance obligations? We've spoken about some, but I'll just like walk us through the major ones. So I'm going to start with the lawful basis. So before we touch like any single piece of personal data, we need to identify the legal reason. Is it consent? Is it for a contract you have with the data subject? Is it legal obligation? Is it necessary to protect someone's vital interest? Now looking at all of these things, why are we data? And then some fintechs they might rely on legitimate interest, which is actually like very valid. But we need to balance it carefully against individual rights. And then you document this balance. Now, when it comes to transparency, you must tell people what you are doing with their data. Your privacy policy is not just something that will be is an afterthought on the footer. Yes, it's going to be on the footer, but it's something like after you created the website, that's when you're not thinking that, oh, we need to put our privacy policy. There's some website that you click on their privacy, it's not even clickable. Or when you click on it, it's ChatGPT generated privacy policy. And then there's some you need to understand your customer's language. It has to be clear. You're not going to be using legal jargon there for them. When they don't understand some words, you are talking to maybe you're doing like you're creating a product that has to do with farmers, and then you're putting legal jargon for what? And then don't just say, "Oh, we have trusted partners." Who are the trusted partners? Transparency is not optional. It's not optional. And then you need to honor your data subject rights. The NDPA has given like individual specific rights. There's right to access their data, right to correct inaccurate data, right to restrict processing, right to object. And as an organization, you need processes to handle these requests within the required timeline. If you cannot just when somebody reach out and say that, oh, we'll do it later, we don't need to do it now or something. And then there's data security. We've spoken about this earlier, encryption, access control, and all of it. Then cross-border data transfer. If you're transferring Nigeria, you need to ensure adequate protection. Or you need
Excuse
to
me, ma'am. Just a reminder, ma'am. There's 5 minutes left for this session, ma'am.
oh okay.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Okay. So and then we are going to be speaking on the data breach. What are the things that they are reportable when it comes to data breach? There is when it comes to reporting data breach, likely to result in risk to rights and freedom of data subjects. If it's not going to result in risk, it might be like incident and not like a major incident. Ask yourself, could they suffer financial loss? Is it going to could their identity be stolen and used to commit fraud? and then discriminated against based on like their exposed information, their reputational will be damaged, and all of that. You need to ask yourself all these questions, and then to the well, after we've determined our breach now, we've determined our breach, the clock start taking. You are required to notify the NDPC within 72 hours of becoming aware of your breach. It's not 72 hours of after you've already contained the breach or figuring. It's 72 hours of being aware. And once it poses like high risk to affect the individual, that means that maybe it's going to like cause potential harm on that particular person. You need to communicate with them without undue delay. They need to know what are the necessary steps they need to take to protect themselves. And then these are like the consequence of getting it wrong. There's going to be the administrative fine. In Nigeria, the NDPC imposed like administrative fine of up to 2% of your annual gross revenue. It's not profit though, it's annual gross. So for like a going fintech now that they're just trying to they're trying to reinvest every naira they are into expanding, and now you're telling them that they need to pay a fine of 2% because they did something else. So that's why I said it that you need to security investment is way better, it's cheaper than paying for the cost of breach. Then there is civil liability in place. The customers they will sue you. They say that you did not protect their data rights. And then the most devastating one is reputational damage. You get one thing in the fintech world is trust is your primary currency. It's not just your technology, it's not how innovative that you are. It is your the trust that the customers have in you. That is your currency, that is the biggest thing that you are dealing with. And also it's not just about you dealing with regulatory fines or legal things. You are fighting with company survival as well too. So please, let us when we're talking about like cost failure, we're not just talking about money. We're talking about the risk of the existence of your business. Now we have like the we've talking about what happens internally. So we need to talk about how to navigate the external environment that we operate in as a country. We have like significant structural gap that we must acknowledge and work around. The first thing for us is the foreign cloud dependency. Majority of Nigerian fintech they rely on hyperscale provider like Amazon, Google Cloud, and all. What fine? These providers they are highly secure with what cloud security team. It's not that's not the problem. The problem is that we depend on them so much. And the data sovereignty question like where Nigerian data actually is. There's also like jurisdictional challenge and all. And there's also like vulnerability to global infrastructure outage. If anything happens in Europe, it's going to affect her because majority of the cloud service provider they are there. And that's when Nigeria is using like cloud service provider. Then when it comes to like our own internal, we have like weak local infrastructure. We're talking about like the power grid or internet infrastructure. Because this thing they create like a constant battle when it comes to like the core data protection. Well, that is like the data ensuring like data availability. So when the power goes out now and your power and your backup do not keep it properly, this is not just about like operational problem. It's also like compliance failure. And then we have like limited regulatory technical audit capacity. I mean, the NDPC is doing like a commendable job, like a very good one. There has been like major improvements, but we also need to emphasize on something. Now we're having like most of fintech companies highly technical systems, so the auditing has become complex. We need people that they have skill set that will be audit they will need to audit the algorithm, audit the cloud architecture, the encryption method, and forensic investigation as well. Too. So we need to learn to build capacity with that. Uh, our also need to be able to support them. Yeah, and then there is low data privacy literacy. A lot of people in Nigeria they don't know about that data privacy rights. They don't know that they can process. They don't know that they can withdraw consent. the thing is that they will just click on I agree without understanding what they are agreeing to. And this is like a very big problem because people don't know that they have rights to something. They don't even know how to protect the rights. And then there's limited AI governance framework as well. Too. Fine, the NDPA has given us a good foundation, but we still need specific sectorial guidelines for all this, like our ethical and um, privacy, sorry, all this our ethical and privacy respective use of artificial intelligence. When it comes to thinking, how do we audit algorithm for bias? What are the rules around fully automated decision making? You understand? So we need when AI is making a decision affecting someone's financial life. So we need more specific framework and we need them to be developed now, not when the technology has now like outrun our ability to be able to govern it. Now, what are the lessons that we need to get from EU GDPR? First, they have like these funding models. GDPR authorized authority, they're often like independent funded. They have their own budgeting line, resources, and they are not attached to like maybe political negotiation or something. And then this has given them like a great autonomy, the ability for them to be able to recruit top tier talents. Let's take a look at UK's ICO now. They have around 1,000 staff and they have like the annual budget of 60 million pounds. So this can give them the autonomy power to be able to have AI units, forensic investigators, and even international strategy team. The next one is regulatory sandbox. When it comes to UK and EU regulators, they actively use their regulatory sandbox to foster innovation while maintaining oversight. They work hand in hand with fintechs for them to understand like new technology. What are they building? How do we build laws around what the fintechs are building now? Let us think about this approach. Instead of us waiting for a violation to occur, then publishing it, we need it early. We need to learn about technology. How can we shape compliance innovation? Because this is like a model where we need to deepen here in Nigeria. Then we have like our AI governance integration. I mean, Europe is leading the way with AI Act, which is actually like integrated with the GDPR. But there is no AI Act here in Nigeria. And it creates like a clear, predictable framework for business. Because in GDPR now, high risk in Europe rather, high risk AI system, the first fit requirements around risk management, data quality, and documentation, human oversight is a risk-based approach. It is clear, it is enforceable. So we need to start thinking about this integration now, not in 5 years, but now. Then look at the maximum enforcement fine under GDPR. It's up to 4% of global turnover. And the thing is that it's actually beyond this amount. It's also like a culture that has been developed. Most of companies in GDPR jurisdiction, they expect to be held accountable. So many organizations in Nigeria here, they don't even know that they need to have like the data protection, they need to do their audit, they don't know it. In Europe, the budget for compliance, they take it serious because they know that regulators take it serious. So we need to build the same culture here, where compliance is not seen as an optional cost, but as a fundamental requirement of doing business. Then this cross-border enforcement cooperation. The GDPRs are established mechanism like one-stop shop. So in Nigeria too, we also need to find a way to strengthen our cooperation with other regulations, such as in Europe, in Africa. Oh, so what are the things that we must do for NDPC now? We need to advocate for increasing technical funding and staff. Yes, so that we can have areas that they are specializing in AI and big data units. This is like very necessity, not just like, oh, Nigeria is not advanced. It's necessity for us. People within the regulator who can audit algorithms for bias, who understand cloud architecture well enough to access vendor risk assessments, who can audit, who can conduct forensic investigations. Sorry. Then for fintech, we need to go beyond box tick. We need to conduct regular GPIs, not just when we think that we are going to be audited,
Hi,
but for
good afternoon.
and
Sorry about that. I'm sorry to interrupt. uh, I'm supposed to speak after you, and
yeah, I'm almost done. This is
we
like the
have
last
30
page.
minutes, but I just want to let compliance know that they can let the next speaker go ahead because I have a meeting at 1 p.m. So I won't be able to make my time.
Oh, can I just quickly round up like the
Yeah,
last page
what
so
I'm
you can
saying
go
is that
ahead?
even if you round up in 2 or 5 minutes, I still have to make my meeting at 1 p.m. and I
Oh,
won't be able
okay,
to have my 30-minute slot. Do you understand?
okay, okay,
So the next speaker can go, and if I am done with my meeting at 1 p.m., then I'll join to take my part.
okay,
Gift, is that
okay.
fine?
That is fine, ma. That is fine, ma.
Okay,
Very
all
fine.
right, great.
Thank you,
Bye.
ma.
Thank you.
So that's for like the fintechs. Then for government and regulators, they also need to find a way to like merge like all these NDPC, CBN, SCC. We need to find a way to like intertwine them together. Then we also need to find a way we need to fund like the public digital rights awareness campaign. Like the average Nigerian needs to know their rights. And they need to know that I have a right to my data and I know how to exercise it. It's not just about like, oh, the company is telling me to do this, so I have to do it. They're telling me to check this, I have to check it. I know the right to my data. So so the conclusion to so for us to wrap up this this thing keeps skipping. So for us to wrap up this with some closing reflection, the thing is that the Nigerian fintech revolution, they have like it's a story of incredible progress. I mean, it is remarkable, and we should all be proud of what the ecosystem achieved. But when now that we're trying to build like this new digital economy, we need to build it on a foundation of trust because without trust, we can't survive. And we also need to commend the NDPC for their proactive stance so far and the transparency that they've been showing. The fact that they're even publishing the name of non-compliant entities is a very powerful. And this is sending message to like people that data protection is not optional. There are real consequences for getting it wrong, and the regulator is actually like watching. And so we also need to like encourage like deeper institutional building, institutional capacity within the commission. There should be like regulation for artificial intelligence, for big data, the one that requires like deep expertise, technical expertise. So all of us we need to support the NDPC in developing these capabilities. And the message is very, very clear. Fintech innovation match with strong privacy governance. Thank you very much. So they're like extra, these are the key resources for us to read upon the Nigerian framework, international and the technical standard. Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry for taking so much of your time.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you for setting the tone so clearly. And you've laid a very strong foundation by highlighting the structures, the foundational structures, and all the technical ones, and even the obligations under Nigerian Data Protection Act, and the structural gaps, the data breach, and all of those. We are very grateful, and then we've indeed built on the foundation. So with that solid foundation in place, we proceed to welcoming our second speaker. Our second speaker is Mrs. Tosin Nathaniel Laws. Mrs. Tosin is a certified data protection officer and regulatory compliance expert with deep expertise in data privacy, cybersecurity governance, and legal advisory. She leads Nextply compliance, where she helps organizations achieve strategic compliance across data protection, cybersecurity, tax, and corporate governance. As the managing partner at TNL Legals, an NDPC licensed data protection compliance organization, DPCO, she offers tailored solutions for startups, SMEs, and corporate organizations navigating complex regulatory frameworks. As executive director of the African Data Privacy Network, ADPN, she is actively shaping the future of privacy awareness across the continent. She's a sought-after speaker and trainer who regularly facilitates sessions on regulatory readiness, data governance, and compliance for digital businesses. She strongly believes that compliance shouldn't stifle innovation, rather it should power it. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Tosin Nathaniel Laws. Thank you, Ms. Tosin.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, all right, perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I'll turn on my video in a minute. Okay, thank you so much, Gift. And I want to say thank you so much for the speaker that just spoke. That was really insightful and really detailed. That was a real foundation. Built on that. Thank you so very much. Thank you for having me, Edge, Arise this afternoon. It's such a huge privilege to be speaking to the amazing minds in the room today. And I will be sharing my screen so I can get right in.
Please, while she's preparing, if you have questions, please note them on the chat box so they can be answered at the end of the presentation. Thank you. Sorry, ma'am. Mrs. Abidat Akile, could you unshare your screen so our current speaker can share hers?
Okay, I don't know if that is the reason why I'm finding it difficult to share my screen.
Could you try doing it now? Try.
No, I've actually stopped sharing my screen since.
Oh, okay, okay, ma'am.
Apologies for the delay.
So, Ma, could you proceed without sharing your screen? Would it be convenient?
Okay, sorry, I'm almost there.
All right.
Okay. Oh, okay, all right. Can you see my screen now? Can you please confirm you can see my screen
Yes,
now?
I can see it very clearly.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about integrating data privacy and protection into product ideation, right? What are the metrics? What are the practical guidance for compliance officer, right? Just as we know, just as the first speaker has laid the foundation, right? Data protection is the big deal, is a big deal, right? Data is a big deal. Like the popular saying now, data is the new oil, right? And when they say data is the new oil, it's the new big thing, right? And a lot of people are drilling it out, right? Because it's the value on, data is actually really high right now, right? And we've been talking about data privacy, data protection, and we've already gotten a foundation. So I'm going to be talking from the point of integrating data privacy and data protection into, do you understand, the ideation stage right from the beginning. And also I'm going to be talking about the roles of DPO, compliance officers, right, in making this a reality. Okay. All right. So, okay. So I'll start with a scenario. I'll start with a scenario. Yeah, we're talking about tech companies, fintechs, financial institutions, and the likes, because when we're talking about data privacy, data protection, majorly in Nigeria, it is actually an aspect that is evolving, and of course, it is evolving really fast, right? And those that have really embraced it so much, and those that have are actually working, you know, actively towards it are actually the large companies, fintechs, and all of that, right? Because they are the first people that actually have access and who are actually mining this data so much. So let's give a scenario. A fintech just raised funds, right? And then the next thing they are thinking about is, oh, okay, the marketing guys, how can you come on board? How can you, get the data for us, right? How can we reach out to our potential users, right? How can we pull phone numbers, locations, and all of that, right? Nobody is talking about, oh, what do we need to do, right? First, before we can actually use all of this, right? No one is asking the right questions when it comes to complying, right, with what the law actually says, right? Everybody is just talking about, oh, we have money now. How can we actually, in fact, some people even go to the extent of even buying data, right? And, to actually use it and maximize it for whatever they want to use for their products and all of that, right? And of course, we've seen different scenarios, right, recently, that NDPC is already knocking. Last year, they shortlisted a number of companies, right, in the fintech, financial institutions, gaming, telecommunications, and all of that. And earlier this year, we saw that they also shortlisted list of tertiary institutions, right, that have not been compliant with the law, right? So imagine the regulators, like, they come knocking and all of that. Whatever money you've raised and whatever progress you think you're making, right? Like they say, if you are running, if you are running or you are speeding, right, in the wrong direction, it just makes everything fertile in that sense, right? So there are some things that are actually basic, that are foundations that we actually need to put in place. Just like the last speaker said, it is non-negotiable, right, for you to have a DPO on board, especially as a fintech, right, as a financial institution, as an organization that actually deal with a lot of data, large data. You deal with sensitive data, right? You cannot afford not to have a DPO. Okay, so she was saying a whole lot of interesting things, right? And I'm sure that founders, what they are thinking about is, okay, how can I actually multiply money, right? I'm not into all the jargons and jargons and jargons. I don't even want to know what is in the privacy policy in that sense. Like, I can't draft a privacy policy. I can't. So what a lot of people, because they just want to run fast, they just go do copy and paste, right? But having a DPO on board, what that is going to help you do is that it's going to help you put the necessary checks and balances, right? And it's going to help you stay compliant right from the beginning, right? So we are talking about how to actually integrate data privacy. And I believe that the first step is actually you having an expert on board. It's just like you're going to you have a case before a competent court in Nigeria, right? The what's it called now? The determination, right? Whether you're going to win that case or not, it's based on, do you have a competent lawyer? Do you have a good lawyer who can actually represent you, right? To actually plead your case properly, right? But if you say, I don't have a good, you just want to do anything, or you will also get anyhow, results in that sense, right? Because the laws are there, right? You need someone who can actually help you interpret it properly and help you put those measures in place. Like I usually say, compliance, right? Of course, when we're talking about privacy, data protection, it falls under compliance, right? Compliance is not yet to actually stifle innovation, right? A lot of tech founders feel like, okay, all of this is actually stifling us, like there's too much. But the thing is, if you have a professional on board, right, having a DPO, right, assigned, who is actually thinking about all of this and is carrying all the edit, it will actually help you fly much more, right? So I tell a lot of founders that compliance is actually like a sandbox, right? When you have it in place, when you fall, you have a soft landing to actually fall on. So you are not falling brutally, right? You are actually, so you have that confidence that, okay, I can actually run and run well. So I have it here. I said privacy is not a blocker. Privacy is a product feature. Right. So it is not just, this privacy of a thing. The way you're thinking that, okay, what are the features I should have in my app? What are the features I should actually embed into my product, right? Privacy should be a core thing, right? You are also thinking about it is a feature in that sense for you to actually, add into your product. And the best fintech companies do not bolt on compliance at the end. They bake it into their product or their company or whatever they're doing from day one. Okay, so that'll take us to the next slide. I'm trying to run quickly. So I'm going to be talking about 3 pillars, right, of product-centric compliance. And I'm necessarily talking to the DPOs in the room, the compliance experts, those that are actually in charge of, ensuring that compliance is actually adhered to in the company, right? So the first pillar is get in the room early, right? The second one I'm going to be talking about is assess before you ship, right? Ensure you actually check, okay, review all the documentations, assess your structure, right? Do we have the proper things in place? Then, of course, compliance does not stop at launch, right? After you launch, you still have to keep monitoring. These measures we've actually come up with, are they being adhered to, right? If initially we didn't start by collecting sensitive data, has that changed now? Right. So those are the questions compliance and DPOs are supposed to be asking, compliance experts and DPO, right? So it's not just, okay, let's just do a DPIA before we launch, and that's all, right? After you even launch, there are some questions you still need to keep asking, right? What are the assessments, right? Do we have any form of breach? Are the responses we actually put in place, were they actually adhered to, and all of that, right? So we need to keep monitoring and ensuring that, okay, compliance is not just a one-time thing, it continues as a life cycle. All right, so talking about the first pillar, get in the room early. DPO involvement at the product ideation stage is very important. And here we'll be talking about privacy by design, right? So yeah, there's something called privacy by design, privacy by default, right? So these are actually principles in data protection and privacy, right? That actually will help us embed data protection and privacy, right, from the product ideation stage, right? And what does privacy by design say, right? It says right from the beginning. So let's assume that you're a company that have already started. You didn't know this. You're just getting to know this, right? You just got your DPO on board and all of that, right? Of course, you can conduct your DPIA and put all the measures in place. Let's say, okay, your company now wants to launch a new product, right? Wants to launch a new software. So it is not until you already writing the code, you're not asking, right? Or until after you've launched and you've been sanctioned or you've been penalized or there's a complaint against your company, right, by data subjects. That's when you start thinking about data protection, right? And yeah, data protection and privacy measures, right? It needs to come from the beginning, right? So when you are having management meeting, right? Just like the first speaker said, the DPO is supposed to have direct access to top management, right? Practically, DPO is supposed to also sit, right, at the top management level as well, such that there's no form of bureaucracy, right? The DPO can easily assess, and of course, the DPO is supposed to have as much independence as possible, such that I know there's usually a clash between compliance and sales, right? Sales just wants to, make the money and all of that. But compliance is saying that it's not just about you can make all the money you want to make, right? But you can lose it. You can make a lot of money in months, but that money you made in months, right? You can lose it in 5 seconds, right? If you have issues with compliance. So as much as possible, right? DPO needs to get involved from day one so that they can actually integrate what is called privacy by design and privacy by default, right? So privacy by design, like I said, it is about baking in privacy from the beginning, asking the right questions from the beginning. Why privacy by default, right, is ensuring that whatever system you are putting in place, whatever settings you're putting, it has privacy by default, right? It has privacy by default. Privacy. So, for instance, now let me give an example. If you have an app that has the ability to actually track somebody's live location, right? You put it off automatically, right? Except the user themselves now say, okay, I want you to actually track my location so you can actually, carry out the better service for me, right? Then I go and turn it on. So that scenario, you turning it off automatically, right, is actually an example of privacy by default in that sense. So let's go to the next slide quickly. Okay, sorry. Okay, so talking about the first pillar, right? For a compliance expert, DPO, right? To ask, of course, we've established the fact that one of the major ways to actually integrate data privacy from the ideation stage is having a DPO on board, right? So all the jargons and all the technicalities, you as a founder don't have to, break your head over it in that sense. You have a professional on board, just the way you don't, if you are not a technical person that write code, right, as a founder, you don't have to, you get developers on board, right? So they are the one that actually, do all the technical, right, the codes and all of that, right? So same way as well as a founder, right, or as a fintech, as a tech company, you deal with data, large volumes and all of that. It is very important to actually have the DPO on board, of course. So talking about the first pillar I mentioned about getting in the room early is the DPO has to ask some questions, some very vital questions, like I said, right, in embedding privacy by design from the beginning, right, from the product ideation stage. What data are we collecting and why, right? there are principles governing, data processing and all of that, right? And one of it is data minimization, right? So one thing, of course, there are several other principles, right? So it's not just about data minimization. We'll be talking about the first, the DPO is supposed to ask a couple of questions, right? What's data are we collecting, and why are we collecting it? Is it necessary for us to even collect it in the first place, right? For instance, if all the data you need is just the name and email address of your users, why go ahead to collect their home address? Why go ahead to collect their BVN? Why go ahead to collect their health details? Why go ahead to collect their NIN, right? So these are things that if you inculcate privacy from the beginning, right, when you ask those questions, it will give you a headway to even know, okay, these are the kind of data we actually need to even collect. So you are not even collecting excess data that will now, give you issues eventually, because when you collect data, you have the responsibility to actually protect them, right? You have the responsibility to actually put in proper measures, right? For instance, now we have sensitive data, we have non-sensitive data, right? Just as the name implies, sensitive data is the data that actually have the potential, right, of causing damage or higher risk, right, to the data subject if it is exposed or if there's any breach and all of that. So it requires higher technical measures, right, to be put in place. So if you don't need sensitive data, why collect it? Because if regulators come knocking, right, and you don't have the technical measures to actually protect those sensitive data, you will be in soup. So at this early stage, before you even collect the data at all, when you have this right questions, right, with the help of the DPO can say, okay, you know what, we are not collecting this data. It is not required, right? Maybe eventually later, as your app or your product develops more, as people use it more, you might require more information. Then of course you can now collect. At that point, you now have a need for it, right? But why collect so much data? So data minimization says collect only the data you need. Don't collect more than what you actually require. Then, of course, another question that will be asked at the beginning is that how are we getting consent? How are we getting the consent, right? Consent is not supposed to be modeled up. It's not supposed to be bundled up, right? Consent is not supposed to be, it's not privacy policy, right? Consent is supposed to be explicit. If you want to collect data using a form, at the end of the form, you should have the consent explicitly written, right, at the end of the form, that this is what we want to collect your data. This is what we want to collect your data for. This is why we want to collect your data for. This is what we are going to be using your data for. This is how long we're going to be storing your data and all of those information, right? And it has to be as transparent as possible. Like you have to be able to explain, of course, in very simple English and in very straightforward English in that sense. You don't have to bury it up or bundle it up with other terms and conditions, and you are not supposed to assume in that sense. I need to run fast now. Then, of course, what happens when things go wrong? Of course, the first speaker spoke earlier of what are your incident response plans. So if there's a breach, what are the things what are the things you have actually put in place or needs to be put in place if so and so happens, right? So you are proactive, not reactive, in that sense. So let's go to the next slide. So these are real world examples. For instance, a digital lending app like Okash, Rent Money, right? They collect phone contacts, SMS location, financial histories, and all of that, right? Like I said, do we really need this to actually access this, right? Is there a way for us to actually minimize this data we're actually collecting? For instance, now, a fintech founder might feel like, okay, I want to tailor my product like this particular existing product, right? So these people collect this, and that. You don't even know the reason why they collect those. You just assume that, okay, because they are collecting it, let me collect it as well, right? So we need to ask ourselves, what are these, right? And what are the technical measures as well that actually needs to be put in place? And if there is a breach, what do we need to do? What are the things? And for how long do we even need to keep this? So these and many more other questions are what the DPO is going to help, you know, integrate right from the beginning. Let me rush to the next slide. Yeah, so okay, so yeah, so these are measuring yardsticks now, right, at the early stage as a DPO, right? How do we actually measure our compliance level, right? And all of this, right, of course, will help you actually track if your compliance level is actually good or average or bad or standard, up to the industry level or not, right? So we have data minimization index, we have consent coverage rate, then we have pre-launch risk score, right? So all of these are actually documentations, right, that needs to be put in place, right? That needs to be done, that needs to be carried out, right? At that level of ideation stage, right? Where you are still plotting and this and that. So it's just like just like what the Bible says, it says, write the vision and make it clear, right? When you have the vision clearly written, right, you've actually done all your homework. It is easier for you to just run fast, right? You have all the checks and balances. A lot of people say compliance is expensive, but trust me, not compliance is more expensive, right? If you are found wanting, if you are penalized or fined, it is more expensive than you actually doing the needful from the beginning. And there's nothing more priceless than you gaining people's trust, right? Then also as a compliance officer, right, as a data protection officer, as a compliance expert, a lot of times there's usually a clash between them and the sales and management, because management wants to see profits, right? The way sales and marketers bring figures that, okay, if you invest also amount into our marketing budget, right, this is the ROI, right? As a compliance expert as well, you can also bring in the numbers, right? You can also bring in the numbers to your management and say this and this. So these are the numbers. This is the level of compliance we've actually adhered to, right? These are the things that we still need to put in place, and not just giving them head knowledge, or just giving them vague things, or just giving them a lot of technical jargons, right? If you bring it down to their level and bring it down to what is actually relatable, right, to the management, I believe they would actually listen. A lot of times when I carry out trainings, especially for people that are not necessarily technically inclined in that sense, right? I've been privileged to train professors, elderly people that are not even of the tech. I try to bring it down to my audience level, and at the end of the day, they're like, wow, they never knew that this was this important. In fact, most of them come and they ask you some very relatable questions, and you're like, wow, you have to bring it home to them for them to really understand. My time is running out already, so let me talk about the next pillar, number 2. So yes, access before you ship, right? So you have to check all your documentations, right? You have to carry out a DPIA, right? Of course, the law already made provisions of when it is important to conduct a DPIA when you're trying to when you're trying to launch a new product, you're handling sensitive data and all of that. But like the first speaker said, it's just best to be on the safer side, right? Carry out DPIs, carry out this assessment, right? And of course, vendors reviews. You need to check your vendors, right? You don't just deal with anybody, right? Especially in this the technology field, right? when we're talking about fintechs and all of that, right? They can deal with a lot of vendors, right? A lot of integration, a lot of API integrations. So you need to do your research. These integrations I'm doing, this vendors I'm trying to integrate into my platform, are they compliant as well, right? So, and also you need to, of course, ensure that the proper agreements are actually signed to actually safeguard, your data as well. Then, of course, you have to keep monitoring. You have to keep monitoring how your data is being used, right? If, for instance, if you say, okay, this is the only, these are the particular data we actually need to collect, you have to keep following up with each department to ensure that, they've not started. For instance, now if we determine from the beginning that, okay, we don't need sensitive data, right? We have to keep assessing. We've not been able to scale through or scale beyond just non-sensitive data, right? And all of that. So let's go to the next slide. Let me go. Okay, so these are just metrics to actually measure. So let's talk about the third pillar, right? So monitor after launch. I've said a couple of things on this already, right? So as a DPO, right, even the law requires that you do time to time audit, right? At least semi-annually, right? Audit, right? You can do quarterly, you can even do monthly, right? If you want to, and if you think that it is actually needful as much as possible. So continuous audit, right? The platform and all of that. Then, of course, check, do we have any complaints? Do we have any breaches? And have we been able to respond to them well? And all of that. So we need to track every single thing. So compliance is not just at the point of, okay, I register with the Nigerian Data Protection, I file my audit for the year, and that's all. We go to sleep. No, it is a continuous thing in that sense. Then, of course, you have to continue to manage the consent lifecycle. The fact, consent once given is not consent always given, right? If you get consent at the initial stage, right, of a product, and you need to actually use that data for another thing, you have to get consent again, right? So consent is something that actually you have to keep taking if the need arises. Yes. Okay, so compliance officer toolkit: get in early, assess first, then monitor always. Okay, so I think I've gotten to like the end of my slide. All right. So, okay, so I wrote here that when compliance has numbers, compliance gets budget. So just the way marketers get their budgets and all of that, based on the fact that they give numbers, we can also give numbers, right, to our companies, so that you can have the appropriate budget and the appropriate power you need to actually implement all of the measures that has been put in place. Then also get invited to your product team at the next edition. So this is like a challenge I'm putting to every compliance officer, compliance experts, compliance data protection officers, right, of every organization, and also even challenge to even CEOs as well. Bring your compliance expert on board, right? Bring your DPOs on board right from the beginning. Don't just do it all by yourself, right? Don't bring compliance in as an afterthought. Bring it from the beginning, right? And it's actually going to make a huge difference, and it's going to boost whatever profit, right, or whatever revenue you're actually looking at, getting. Because right now, right, data protection is something you can actually build trust, right, and build good brand awareness. I sincerely, like, we've been hearing news of this company was fined, that company was fined. It might not have so much impact. People might just be talking about it, by the way, right? But it is actually registering something in people's mind, and before you know it, people might not be comfortable, right, dealing with those companies that are having, because when trust issues start coming up, even people themselves, it's just like a relationship. You might not even know that you already having trust issues, right? Until something happens and you just find yourself that you're not comfortable with this person, right? As much as possible. Yeah, so privacy is not the blocker. Privacy is a product feature. So thank you so much for having me. We can keep pushing this conversation. You can follow me on all my social media platforms at Tosin Nathaniel Luz. Thank you so much. And I hope you actually enjoyed the session. And I'm also open to questions, to taking questions. I don't know what the plan is with organizers.
Thank you, Mrs. Tosin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was such an
I
invaluable.
think I should hand over back to Gifts.
Oh, thank you, ma. So you've highlighted the importance of consent, minimization, privacy by design, and all the measures we need when we are handling personal data, and we have really learned a lot. So our third speaker is on, and I've also noted that there are questions. Please, the questions will be answered and attempted after the whole session. That's upon the conclusion of all the speakers' presentation. So for our third speaker is Mrs. Francisca Tanimojo. So, a minute. Mrs. Francisca is a commercial legal counsel with over 6 years of experience advising technology-driven businesses across West Africa. She specializes in regulatory and operational matters, bringing valuable insights into how organizations navigate complex legal and compliance landscapes. Please join us in welcoming Mrs. Francisca. Mrs. Francisca,
Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
good afternoon, ma'am. It's nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Hello to everyone on the webinar right now and to all the speakers that have gone before me. Thank you for sharing your insights. I'm sure we've all learned a lot. Then going straight into my session, I will be speaking on the foundations and regulatory architecture and enforcement capacity of the NDPA regarding data privacy and protection. So we'll first begin with the distinction between data privacy and data protection and cybersecurity. So data privacy involves the ethics of data management. So it concerns the why, the what, and the who. So why is data being collected? What is data being used for? And who is responsible for controlling or processing this data that is collected? While data protection involves the technology and the processes that actually impact data availability. Thirdly, cybersecurity involves safeguarding this data. So, like I believe Abibat mentioned it. I'm sorry if I am pronouncing her name wrong. The first speaker, Abidat, yeah, she mentioned concepts surrounding access control and encryption. So that those are just instances of how data is safeguarded, and that is firmly under cybersecurity. Moving on, I believe the first and second speakers have kind of touched on the differences between personal data and sensitive personal data under Nigerian law. But briefly, personal data is data that is tied to an individual that can indirectly directly or indirectly reference an individual. Examples of that is a name, identification number, location data, online identifiers, or one or more factors that are specific to the physical, genetic, psychological, cultural, economic identity of that individual. While sensitive personal data is personal data that relates to things like the genetic and biometric data of an individual. the person's race or ethnic origin, religious or similar beliefs, their health status, sex life, political opinions, and so on and so forth. I mean, this information is contained in the legislation. So, for further reading, and I think firmly based on the topic of this webinar, I'll be going into big data and big data in fintech, specifically the Nigerian fintech ecosystem. Now, what is big data? I mean, like I was informed that about maybe 70% of the participants on this webinar are lawyers. And if you're anything like me, you are not exactly in tune with like technical terminology regarding data mapping, data science, and data science. But to break it down, big data is just simply large volumes of data that cannot be processed according to traditional means. Now, in a molecular level, you can imagine that if you have a data subset of name, address, and let's say ID card, those are just three data sets. And let's say you're processing that data for about 20 data subjects. You have three data sets for 20 data subjects. That information can be processed manually completely by using an Excel sheet. That's a very traditional mode of processing. You can analyze that data for whatever insight you need. Why? Because your data sets are very limited. Secondly, the number of data subjects are also limited. Big data now comes in when you have large
Sorry, ma, but we can't hear you. I don't know if it's just me, but we are no longer hearing you, ma'am. Miss Francisca.
I think Francisca had a technical issue, so I think she dropped off and she's going to join back in a minute.
All right, all right. So while we're waiting for her, please, if you have questions, kindly drop them on the chat box so they will be addressed after this presentation. Thank you. Let's be patient as we wait for Miss Francisca to reconnect. So while Mrs. Francisca is trying to reconnect, we've noted some questions in the chat box and would like to begin asking the questions to our speakers that are currently available. So to our speakers, I'm not sure if you're available. So Mrs. Tosin, I don't know if you're available for our questions. And
Yeah. I'm here.
all right, ma'am. Thank you. So our question is, the first question is, can you elaborate how to conduct a DPIA in line with the extant law, especially in a financial
You are
institution?
breaking. I can't hear you clearly. You're breaking.
All right. Can you elaborate? Can you hear me now? Is it better? Hello, ma. Can you elaborate how to conduct a
Yeah, you are.
DPIA? Can you elaborate how to conduct a DPIA in line with the extant law, especially in a financial institution where the company is migrating or has migrated to a new core banking application? I don't know if you heard me, ma.
Sorry, can you take that again?
Can you elaborate how to conduct an impact assessment in line with the extant law, especially in a financial institution where the company is migrating or has migrated to a new core banking application?
Okay, let me just say that DPIA, right, is an assessment. Can you hear me? Okay, it's an assessment to be carried. Yeah, it's an assessment to be carried out, right? It's like you conducting an audit on something, right? To actually take stock. So it's like you taking stock, right? Of okay, what do we have? What do we need? Right? What needs to be done, and all of that. So there is a template. Even there's a template by the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. You can find it in the guide of 2025. Right, there's a template there. So once you have that template, I believe you have everything, right? It will actually help you ask the proper questions. What data will be collected from whom, why, how are we going to collect the data, how are we going to properly secure it, who are those that are going to have access to it, right? For how long are we going to be keeping it, right? How long are we going to be storing or retaining it, right? Are we going to be sharing it with third party? Are these data going to be transferred out of the country, or it's just going to be for only consumption within Nigeria and all of that? So all those questions are actually embedded into it, right? So there's a template, right, that is easily accessible. So you can go to the website, the NDPC website, and you find the guide. Go through, you find the template there. So with that template, right, you can actually conduct a proper DPI here, right? Such that if regulators come calling, right, or if maybe you need to deal with a partner, right, that actually requires to see an evidence you've actually conducted the DPI, right, you can actually always issue out or bring out that document in that sense. So that template will help you identify all of what we've actually spoken about, and also help you identify, okay, are there any risk, right? And it will also help you map out how the data flow will be like, right, from the beginning to the end. Okay, this is how we collect it, this is how we use it, this is how we store it, do we share with other third parties and all of that. So all of that is going to be duly answered, right? So there's a template that where the questions are already imputed there, right? You answer. So I hope I've been able to answer that question.
Thank you very much, ma. I don't know if Rhoda or Joe that asked the question has been clarified. So I don't know if you're here. Could you signify that you've understood the answer? So until she replies, uh, the next question will be to our first speaker. Our first speaker, Mrs. Sorry, give me a minute. So our first speaker, Mrs. Abidat Akinleye. I don't know if she's currently available. Mrs. Abidat Akinleye.
Yes, I'm on the call, and it's Miss, not Mrs.
Okay, sorry, ma'am, Miss Abidat Akinleye. Okay, so I don't. You spoke on
Yeah.
encryption on data, and I wanted to confirm if and when data is encrypted, does it automatically reduce liability in case of breach? You spoke on data breach and all of the attendant consequences, including reputational damage. So we want to know if the proper encryption of data will automatically or completely or to an extent reduce liability, and what is the implication? Why should they want to encrypt their data?
Okay, so the encryption of data. So when you are using like military level encryption, so you're using like AES 256 and you're using like TLS 1.3 to encrypt your data while it's at rest or maybe in transit. This is making sure that because you know your data is transferring from one place to another. It's not just staying in one network. It's transferring from one network to the other. So you're ensuring that if there's like an hacker in between those networks, they are unable to see your data. So encrypting your data, there is something we call encryption. This we call them encryption key. That the person would not be able to see anything, all those data, all those sensitive data, they will not be able to see it. So definitely, it actually like reduce the risk of unauthorized access. But literally, that's not like the only thing that you are putting in place. You are putting this is like among other things that you are putting in place. You are also putting like your firewall, your multi-factor authentication as well. But it reduce it. So when you encrypt your data, that's like a very great benefit for your sensitive data compared to like when it's just there in the cloud. You're not securing your cloud environment. It's just there in the cloud and anybody can see it and they will have access to your data. So it's actually like very good to encrypt your data and use like military like a very good grade of encryption, your AES 256 and TLS 1.3. I hope I've been able to answer that.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much, ma'am. So I don't know if our last speaker is back on and is now available. Mrs. Francisca Tani Mujo. Please, can I confirm if she's available and back online? Hello? All right. So I don't think she's online currently. Okay. So okay, so we'll proceed with questions now, more questions. So I will be asking Mrs. Tosin. Hello, ma, are you available?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
All right, ma'am. So we'd like to know what are the common mistakes organizations make when um, when setting access permissions. So what are the mistakes they make? I think this question should be for speaker. But what are the common mistakes organizations make when setting access permissions that's concerning access controls? Hello?
So sorry. I didn't know I was muted. You said one setting what?
When setting access controls like permissions on who has access to data stored in the
Oh,
company's
oh, okay,
organization.
okay. All right. All right. Okay. So the mistakes are actually, I think they're actually very common, right? And one of the mistakes would be not assigning roles in that sense, right? So if it says you are giving access control, like there should be proper access control, and you should be able to assign those that can access it. Do you understand? In that
Yes,
sense. So if data is being stored somewhere, right, everybody should not have access to it. And it should be known, right, that it is only these people, or these persons, right, that can actually access this kind of data. So for instance, now let's say um um employees' data, for instance, right? HR has access to it, right?
Yes.
And um okay, so HR has access to all the information collected at the point of employment, right? And let's say the IT guys have integrated like a payroll something 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 something, right, for easy payment, right? So let's assume that all they need, right, from HR in that sense is just their name and their payment details, right? Their bank and bank accounts. They don't need other like their background, educational background, and all of that, right? So HR should not say, oh, because IT guys came to ask for the data of the employee so that they can pay them. You just hand over the entire drive or the entire folder. Do you understand? In which you
Yes,
have
ma'am.
that data. You just hand it over to them. No, right? You only give them access to only what is needed for them to actually do that, right? So you assign roles in that sense. You put specific this is not giving everybody access or giving, like, if a request was made, just giving them access to the entire data. And of course, there should be reviews made when it comes to checking access to data. For instance, if an employee has had access to a particular data before, right, and they are no longer in that company, their access should be revoked and totally removed, right? So that should be also be reviewed in that sense. Not like, oh, we forgot, we didn't know, right? This person still has this data. So there has to be proper accountability, right, when it comes to access control, in that sense that, okay, part-time, who has access to this, right? And does this person still need access to this, or is just a one-time access the person needs and it should be revoked afterwards, right? So they also fail to actually put the accountability in place, right? So always check that, okay, is there a gap somewhere, right? Have we actually given the person that is not supposed to have access to this data? And of course, not putting proper what's it called now, proper passwords and all of that, right? Putting proper locks to it, right? You can close the door and not lock a door. Right? If you close the door, anybody can still access it, right?
Yes. Yes.
But once you lock it, after closing it, you also still do what? You also still put a lock to it, right? So apart from, oh, okay, I stored it somewhere, right? Even despite the fact that, okay, you didn't necessarily make it available there, but you didn't put any extra lock, especially in cases of sensitive data, right? That if there is any leak or any breach, it could actually cause damage to, so putting more access in that sense, like putting extra lock in that sense. Then yeah, I think those are like the basic
Mistakes.
mistakes, yes, organizations that are not so technical in that sense, that we can all relate with um day to day.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know if the first speaker would like to say something about it.
All right.
Maybe she will need to bring the technical spice to it as well.
Okay. Miss Abidat, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, please, can you the question? Can you repeat the question again so that we get a
I
better
said
understanding?
the common mistakes
Yeah.
organizations make when they are trying to give regulate access controls.
Okay.
When they are
I'm
setting
so
access.
sorry. Yeah, I get your question. I'm so sorry about. I'm actually like I'm at work, so I'm trying
All
to like
right.
attend to some things here. So the common mistake is that they don't review it. Once they've given access, they've given it. They don't go back to review that. Okay, let me use a document as an example. You've created a you're giving access to employees that you needed to work on the documents. Trust me, most of
Yes,
us
I
don't
barely
go
hear
back to
you.
that document. Please, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So I was using like a document as an example. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you create a document now. You're giving access to all employees that you want to give access. after they work on that document, how many times do you go back to check who still have access to that document? How many times do you go back? Most of us, we don't go back. We just remove that document and that's the end of that. Is in our folder. That's the end of it. And there are some ex-employees that they don't need access to it and you've not reviewed. And some people that they are no longer working on that document and you don't need access to that, you are no longer reviewing and all of that. So you need to review your documents, your database, who has access to it. You need to review it quarterly, at least quarterly. That's number one. Another mistake that people make is that when they are giving access, especially like small companies, the mistake that they make is that, oh, because there's no segregation of duties. The CFO might be the accountant, might be the CEO, might be this, might be that. There's no segregation of duties. So everybody is having access to all the documents in that organization, all the database, everybody has access to it. And they might not necessarily need it for their role. So there has to be like segregation of duties. After segregation of duties, there is not like role control on a need to know basis. Who need to know this? Who need to know to have access to this data? If they don't need it, they don't need to have access to it. Don't just say, oh, let me give them access just in case if anything happens. What is going to happen? Nothing other than there's going to be breach. So for you to avoid that, your role based as your access control, it has access control. That's like another because especially for startup, we just like give out access to all documents, all database, just because everybody we are family, let's give access. That's like another thing. The third thing is that I mean the first speaker spoke about like using like all these multi-factor authentication and all of that. Most companies they don't use like password alone. Are you using a strong password? Are you using are you also like adding like multi-factor authentication? Do you need to use like maybe your biometric data? So it will give like additional security to that particular data and all. So those are like the critical things that we look out for when we are dealing with access control.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So I have another very important technical question because I've noted that in the law there is a right to erasure of my data. So if I'm giving
Okay.
an organization my data, I have the right to ensure if I want it to be deleted from the database. So I want to understand the technical mechanisms around ensuring that data is truly deleted and erased from the
Yeah.
firms, organizations, systems, cloud, whatever. Like how do we confirm? How are we certain that it is properly deleted?
Yeah. Okay,
And
so like I said earlier, okay, let me just answer this question. Like I said earlier, the this deletion of data, doing it manually, it can cause error. That's why they have to like put some automations so that when they see that you don't really interact with that particular data, it pop up that you see that you've not been interacting with this data. Is it still fulfilling its obligation? Do you want to delete it? And then by the time you say, okay, delete it, when you securely now the deletion to now delete that particular data, they give you deletion certificates. So when they give you deletion certificate, these are the certificates that you can now send to your customer that will now show that you successfully deleted their data. Want to delete those data, you can
sorry,
anonymize
ma, could you,
those
I'm
data.
not
When it
hearing
comes to
you.
anonymization of data, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So I said when after the deletion of
Hello, I
data,
cannot hear
all
you.
those applications they give you deletion certificates. So this can you hear me?
It's better now,
Hello,
but
can you hear
I
me?
cannot hear you. Yes, I can hear you now.
My network. I'm so sorry about that. So
Okay.
I said when you delete data,
Yes.
when you delete data from the database, there are some applications that they give you deletion certificates, data deletion certificates. So this data deletion certificate is now what you can now give to your customers. You can show your customers as evidence, or even like regulators as evidence that you securely delete customers data no longer need. You understand? Or maybe you anonymize those data. So anonymization is where you outright that particular data that they can no longer come back to the original phone. So let's say that's for someone's NI anonymize that data. There is no way that after anonymizing that data, to come back to someone's phone number or date of birth, the original data anymore. Unlike pseudonymization, where you can still use that artificial identifier to now go and look at data. Anonymization, you can't trace it back anymore. Once you anonymize, it's gone. So it's either you're anonymizing or you use like automation tool. You can't just be dealing with just manual review alone. Use automation tool that will prompt you and also give you certificates that you can now sell to your customers and also to like auditors. Yeah. So I think that's it. I hope that's been able to like
Yes, yes.
answer
Thank you
to
very much, ma'am. Thank you. So,
yeah.
so this is the last question, and it's going to be to the two
Hi,
speakers.
Gift.
All
Hi,
right.
Gift.
Hello,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I'm back. So, do you mind if we pause the Q&A so I can quickly finish
Yes,
up?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming back.
All right, thank you. Okay, I've put my video off so that I would not have any more interruptions with my internet.
And do you have
So,
slides? Do
going,
you have slides to share?
sorry?
Are there slides you would want to share while you present?
Oh, no.
All
I
right.
already spoke to the organization about that.
All right, ma'am. Carry on, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, I will continue with big data and fintech in the Nigerian ecosystem. I I think I was defining big data before my internet cut off. I don't know, Gift, if you can remind me where I went off.
All right. If I recall, you were still beginning with the difference between data privacy and data protection.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then I'll continue from there. So to summarize it, data privacy concerns the ethics of data management. Data protection concerns the processes, the technology that actually impacts data availability. While cybersecurity is the means by which data is safeguarded, like Abidat said, access control, encryption, and other methods. And then moving on, we'll talk about the data life cycle in AI driven fintechs. So, the data life cycle in such an organization would be first collecting the data. So, this is data gathering. The next is organizing that data, validating it, training it to ensure that it actually satisfies all the to ensure that it satisfies the prompts and the reasoning for the collection, and then deploying the data. Now, it's best to deploy it in a sandbox or in a very controlled environment to minimize risks to real life people. The next step after deployment is monitoring and updating the data that is collected. Now, the reason why this is so important is that, especially in the fintech business, financial data is critical for things like credit scoring, for credit scoring, and from a national standpoint, it actually aids financial inclusion, especially for underbanked or low income areas. Now, let's move on to, yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier that some examples of organizations in Nigerian fintech ecosystem that would be making use of big data are digital lending platforms, AI-driven wealth management apps, open banking integrations like Flutterwave, Paystack, and payment switching monitoring systems. Now, these companies and these organizations, they aggregate data from banks and wallets and different other sources in order to provide services to customers. And in providing these services, they make use of AI profiling and automated decision making. Now, profiling and automated decision making is a very risky venture for these organizations, and these concepts are also regulated by the Nigerian data protection regulator. The law actually provides that data controllers and processors that use data or process data and use it to profile individuals or to make decisions that will have significant impact on these individuals through automated means have to comply with of um, the directive of ensuring that they do a DPIA. So a data privacy impact assessment must be conducted before an individual is subjected to profiling or automated decision making. And then let's move on to and so the impact on data subjects when they are subject to algorithmic to AI profiling involves um, low access to credit, and you can see this in mostly rural areas where like there is not an abundance of data, and there's not an abundance of digital penetration. And these people, they're your local traders, your market sellers, because they don't have this data. And there's a finite way that that organizations are able to procure that data. It means that they are less likely to be deemed credit worthy enough to gain access to credit. However, the our regulator and the NITDA organization, they're actually making strides in this arena. For example, there is a regulatory sandbox that was held between 2023 and 2024 for the NICR, that's the National Artificial Intelligence and Robotics Commission. So what they did is that they picked about 11 organizations that deploying artificial intelligence in their operations, and they basically put them in a sandbox where they allowed they allowed the staff to explain how artificial intelligence is being deployed to process data. And they actually assigned DPUs for these companies. They assigned them DPUs, and they took them through the process of conducting a data protection impact assessment. So this collaborative endeavor between the regulator and innovators is very commendable, because it shows organizations, especially fintech startups, that compliance doesn't have to be as rigorous as it seems. And it shows that our regulator is also willing to meet organizations halfway. Now, I will move on to the investigative and sanctioning powers of the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, and try to touch on whether or not I believe that the enforcement mechanisms are effective. So, thankfully, I believe that our regulator has moved on from being kind of like a soft touch regulator to actually being involved in active enforcement and regulation. I think there's more recognition that if you are guilty of a privacy breach, the NDPC is going to hold you accountable. And for that, like, that's very commendable. We can see that they've publicized various enforcement actions. They've publicized the investigations into WhatsApp, Meta, Temu. They've on their website, I think you can even see the list of organizations that have filed their compliance audits. You can see for 2024, and that's very, very commendable. However, I believe that there are gaps in this. And why do I say so? I will bring up the instance of NDPC's fine and the investigation into WhatsApp/Meta, right? So they investigated WhatsApp, they investigated Meta, and they found WhatsApp and Meta guilty of privacy breaches and actions that are against the NDPC, which was great. Everybody rejoiced at that development. This fine was meted out on Meta around, I think, February 2025. And since the announcement of the fine, it seemed like everywhere, like it went silent. Just for in September 2025, notification was released that the NDPC has settled with Meta. Now, this means that there is no jurisprudence that guides other multinationals in the country as to how investigations are conducted, fines are being meted out to the companies, and the actual penalty that is being done, because nobody knows that. I mean, it's not public knowledge if Meta actually paid any fine for the for breaching the NDPC, and this does not signal to this does not signal to the world that enforcement is being carried out strictly. Now, if you juxtapose this with the Kenyan ODPC, that's the Kenyan Data Protection Commission. So they found that a Bitcoin company, a cryptocurrency company, was illegally collecting biometric information from over like 300,000 Kenyans. And they investigated that company, went to court, got judgment, and actually monitored the complete deletion of Kenyan citizens' biometric information from that organization's system. So you can see that the enforcement moved from investigation to fine to judicial proclamation and to actual enforcement of that decision. It didn't just stop at, okay, you were fined and then we settled. Nobody knows what your terms of settlement are. In fact, the settlement basically absolves Meta of all wrongdoing. And so it seems very it seems like they're giving it a soft touch. But we'll also commend the commission for the different strides that they've made. I think that since the NDPC came into force, especially like maybe 2024, 2025, we've seen reduced public blatant called breaches of privacy, especially from local digital lending platforms. You know, those ones that used to go to people's places of work to kind of embarrass them into as part of their debt recovery process. I think that has reduced a whole lot more because of the NDPC's strides. But I believe that, yeah, they can do more, and they're still a young regulator, and that's very clear in how enforcement is being done. And there are various roadblocks to how they can actually enforce the law, especially when it comes AI. Companies are using AI because um, auditing AI companies or auditing companies that heavily use AI in their systems requires sophisticated forensic tools that can be very expensive, one, and two, requires rigorous training of the NDPC's staff. And so I know that it's going to take a while, but I believe that we're on the right path. And at this point, I believe I have covered all the topics for my session. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. We noted the efforts and the achievements of NDPC in regards to data enforcement and enforcement of all of the rights and obligations of data subjects. And then you've also noted the problems with enforcement and the way to do better. So we appreciate your enriching our knowledge, and we are really privileged to have this lineup of speakers today. And I don't know if we'll have questions from anybody. Please, could you wave your hand in the chat box or signify if you have questions to ask our current speaker? I'm not seeing any signification. Okay, so on that note, we very deeply appreciate all of our speakers. We have really learned a lot, and it was a presentation worth attending, and we very much appreciate the engagement of every of our participants that participated, asked questions, and that contributed to today's discussion. Your engagement makes section like this very impactful. So, on that note, we conclude today's webinar, and we enjoin you all to follow EdgeRise DPCO. Our LinkedIn handle has been sent onto the chat box. Our Instagram handle is already there. Please do connect with us, follow, subscribe, and join us for more updates on data privacy, regulatory developments, and upcoming programs like our coming DPO Training Academy. So stay safe, stay compliant, and we look forward to seeing you all at our next session, which will be communicated to you going forward. Thank you very much, all. And thank you to our wonderful presenters and our teachers once more. We truly appreciate your presence.
Thank you, Gift.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone here to
Thank you.
have a lovely day.
You too, ma. Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.